go live. I think I am live. I'm set up my camera here to show the craft room. All right, let's see if I can turn this around. All right. So I am getting a Angel Dragon suit prepped to start gluing. And so basically, I've actually started one of them. And this one is actually going to have a removable head. And what you're seeing here is one that I've already prepped. And I've measured, it's going to fit me. And so these things are pretty tiny. And in order for them to fit a human, they have to be opened up quite a bit. And I've learned after doing several of these things that you can't just open the back, which is here where the wings are. This is where the zipper goes. But you can't just open the back, you also have to open the front too. Otherwise it looks really funny, it looks like a hunchback. So we're going to be adding material in a panel here, in a panel here, and then also some material on the back to make it big enough. So I'm going to take and prep the second one, so that takes two of them to make an inflatable suit, because it's 2 layers. So here's the second one. This one has not even been opened yet. The only thing it's had is its head removed. And that is because I made a inflatable hood first, and it's going to be able to zip on and off, so if you want the head or not, you can just wear the body, or you could wear the head with it, or you could just wear the head by itself too if you like. So since this is going to be the inside, I've already determined that this is the outside, and really at this point it almost doesn't matter. You just got to pick one that's the inside, one that's the outside. So for the inside, I don't need any of this extra stuff. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and remove all the pieces that I don't need, like the wings. So I'm going to clip down to the seam, to the factory seam, and when I get close enough I can just kind of pull, and it tears right along the factory seam, really nice, until you get to one of these little cross seams. And then I have to kind of cut across it. And then once I do that, I can continue tearing. And now that was just the extra little flap of material. Now I'm going to go for the wing itself. If I can get right down to the seam, then I can do this, and it tears. And I'll save this for material that I can use later, actually. Cut any excess stuff. So one thing we'll have to do is we'll have to come back and patch the little hole, which is, for the air to get from the body into the wing to inflate the wing. So we'll have to patch that. Alright, so I'll do the other wing. So this suit takes about 40 hours to build. It's a pretty involved process. That's why this suit typically, depending on how you get it configured, it's going to be about $1,200 because of how much labor is involved with modifying it. The Dragon only has about a 20-inch waist, so not very many humans would be able to fit in that. There's probably some, but for most people to fit in, it has to be greatly expanded. And I've done one as much as 50 inches. And actually was pretty happy with how it turned out. I was kind of surprised. So I am removing the wings. I'm going to remove the tail, And the tail will actually give me a lot of material that I can use for the expansion. The wings will give me white material that I can use. The tail does as well. So got the wings removed. And the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do the tail. First, I'm going to remove the little flap. Sometimes it will start tearing away from the seam, and it's what it's done here. And you kind of have to, if that happens, you just have to kind of cut back towards the seam again, and happened again. Let's see here. All right. Next, we will remove the tail itself. And this part, you have to kind of be careful because right now it's kind of a vacuum inside there. The tail is a separate compartment. And I just want to pull it away because I don't want to accidentally cut through the material right here on the other side, because then I'll have a hole to patch. So there's my tail. I could always just make an inflatable dragon tail that you could wear. You'd have to have some kind of like a harness, but I'll probably use this for material that I'll need to expand the suit. So next, you know, we could remove all the little claws, but they're small enough. I'm probably just going to leave those alone. In fact, they can be kind of fun because you can get your fingers up into them. So it's a place for your fingers to go if you like. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I need to get into this thing. So I am going to cut a straight line. And I'm going to do it from all the way down here at the base of the tail, or where the tail was, because on the outside suit I also removed the tail because I need to widen this. Once I widen it, I'll make the zipper start above the tail, and then I'll reattach the tail on the outside. But I needed to widen it first, so I had to remove the tail. And for this one, I'll also need to widen the inside as well, so I'll need to go ahead and also cut a straight line basically from the base of the tail all the way up to the neck. And kind of the easy way to do that, you can either take a straight edge, which I had left in the other room, or I could do it with some of this painter's tape. Gotta try to straighten this out and give myself a point that I'm trying to hit. All right, now see, I may have to run and grab my good scissors in the other room, or I could try to use, let me see if these are sharp enough. I kind of like to use really sharp scissors. I have some brand new ones. Let me see if these will work though. Yeah, not too bad. I like the real sharp ones because you can just kind of slide the scissors and go real quick and make a pretty straight line. I have some that are strictly for cutting vinyl, and I don't use them for cutting tape or anything else, and they stay nice. So that's a really good idea, is to have some scissors that are kind of dedicated for doing this. I don't like to leave this on because if you leave painter's tape on, it tends to leave some residue. Certain brands are better than others. I'm going to cut the this inflation nozzle. Unfortunately, it's right where I need to go. I'm going to cut it kind of close to the base of the nozzle. And then finish my cut. And I basically have all the measurements that I'm trying to target. Alright, so that next step is actually going to be to open up the arms and legs. Right now there's these baffles that are on the inside. So you can see where the arm is attached. You can see the back side of the seam there. And there's a small hole here. So what we need to do is we need to open this up. I need to get my scissors in there and want to make sure I'm not cutting into the arm itself. And I'm going to get this close, and I'm going to start angling towards the outer seam. And this is actually going through 2 layers because the arm is made separate and then it's attached. Now I'm going to start with just the closest layer. I'm not going to go through both, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to tear it like this, and then I'm going to go do the one underneath. It started to tear away. Alright, so I got that first layer. Now I can go for the one underneath it. It's a little easier because you can kind of grip the whole thing. And so now I've got the arm opened up. I basically need to do that to the other arm and then also the leg. So make sure I'm not cutting into the arm itself, and then I'm going to slowly start to kind of cut with the outer seam. I don't want to get too close to it. I want to kind of get right up to it because that's where it's going to. I'm going to actually cut a little more just on the outer, on this outer layer. I want to get right up next to it. That way, when I start to tear, it can follow it basically. All right, same thing here. Got the other arm open. Now we want to do the tail, and whenever I have a cut that comes to a point like this, you can tape it, or you can be kind of careful and just kind of fold it so that you're not putting pressure on it, because it'll keep running and you'll end up with a cut that's a lot bigger than you intended on. Right, here's the leg. All right, I'm going to get real close to it, but not cut into the actual seam. And I kind of do a quick, sort of jerk to get it going. Not too hard, but it's kind of enough to to get it to tear. Alright, so there's the outer layer. Here's the inner layer. And we're tearing the ends, the inner part of this circle seam. There's actually a good almost 1/4 inch or maybe so of material before the actual outer part of the seam. And that's, you don't want to tear through that because then you would basically form a hole to the outside. So you got a little bit of buffer room there basically. Got the other leg to do. And then I'm finished with the prepping part, and then I'm going to have to start working on my pattern for the pieces of material that I need to add. And actually what I need to do is I've got one more step. I need to open up the front chest, left and right seams, because I need to add in some panels on the front, some diamond shaped panels. All right, so the arms and the legs are opened up. Now, what I want to do is I want to open up these two seams right here, because I'm going to be adding in some extra material there. And what I can do is I can kind of look at what I did on the outside. That's this one. So I kind of started... let's see, we could actually kind of take and measure this. We could go from, some point that we can easily measure. I can go from this little circle that's in the bottom between the legs, and help if I'm going from the right end of my tape measure here. So 10 inches. And let me see this one, if this one's also 10 inches. It's about 11 inches, so I need to kind of fix these up and make them the same. So we'll go with the 10. And then here, one of them may have torn a little more than it needed to. All right, that one's about 7. That one's about 7. Okay, so 7 and 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and actually I have some smaller scissors I think I'll use for this. I will go ahead and probably, I think I might put, let's go ahead and put some marks on this actually. Measure the same 10 and 7 inches. And I can use a gel pen or a silver Sharpie to temporarily make marks that I can wipe off. So you don't want to leave them on because they can kind of stain permanently if they migrate, if the ink migrates into the vinyl, which vinyl does kind of have plasticizers that migrate around and it can pull pigment and stuff in. You can get stains on the vinyl. Alright, so there's my 10 inches and here is my 7 inches. Measure that again, make sure I got that right. Yeah, I kind of thought maybe it wasn't quite right. So I'm going to wipe that off. And then I'm going to do another mark. It was about 6.5 inches. I like to measure a couple times just to make sure things are right. It's tricky when you're dealing with a curve. You kind of have to make sure that you're following it. Yeah, 7. So now that I've got that, I want to carefully just grab this outer part, and I want to make a cut kind of on one side of the seam so that I can kind of do the same process, and this is a little trickier, but I want to do the same process that I did with the arm, opening up the arms and legs. I want to, you might have to cut it a little bit further to get it so you got a better grip on it, but I kind of want to get the same thing going where I can kind of just tear it. I'm going to go a little bit slower because I don't want this to tear away from the seam. I want this to be clean so that I don't have to try to fix it, because this is going to be something that, luckily this is the inside layer that I'm working on now. But still, I don't want to have to do repairs since this is something you can see. And then basically I'm going to do the same thing here on this side. This is a reversed seam. It's pinched outwards. Obviously this was the last seam that they did. You'll notice that on a toy that some of the seams will face inwards, and then you'll have the very last one that they use to seal the toy is an outward facing seam. If you look at a beach ball, you can kind of see that. All the seams are facing inwards except for one is the outward facing seam, and that's the last one. This is trying to get away from the seam here. So I'm gonna, luckily I could feel it tug. It wasn't pulling quite as easy, and it jumped to the other side of my little flap there. Well, that's okay. I'm going to end up cutting that off, this little seam flap anyways. So I just try to get it to go as evenly as possible so that I don't have a lot of cleanup work to do, because otherwise I have to come back with scissors and kind of clean it up. In fact, what I could do right now is I could go ahead and I could take this little flap and see if I could get the rest of it off. Might have to just use my bigger scissors, and there's not quite enough there to get a grip on it. So I'm just going to kind of cut it. All right, and there's little bits of things like this where it kind of got a little ruffled. I could trim that off. I'll probably come back and do that later. This part here is where the flap jumped to the other side. If I can get it started, I can just kind of pull this off. Same thing here. So let's see, I could probably start it at the bottom if I can get it going. And I can just kind of pull it all in one go. All right, now I'm going to clean off these little marks that I made so they don't start leaching into the material. These little, I used a gel pen is what that is. It's kind of like what elementary and middle schoolers like to use for drawing on stuff. They're kind of metallic, come in a bunch of different colors. They work really good for making marks on vinyl. And they'll wipe right off, sometimes even without the help of alcohol, but I just go ahead and I put some rubbing alcohol. Especially when I'm dealing with white. Sometimes it wants to start seeping into the material. All right, so this is all prepped. I don't have anything else that I need to do. I just need to work on my pattern now. And so what that's going to be is, like, this is one I had done before, and that was the back. And so basically I'm making these little sections of material that this will be the back, and of course it'll end up getting cut down the middle for the zipper. And then there will be a small one that's kind of diamond shaped for the front and left front on either side of the belly. And you'll have to do that twice, once for the inside layer and once for the outside layer. So in order to figure out what this needs to be, what I need to do is take measurements, which I've done of myself, and I need to basically calculate how big this piece needs to be. And I can do that by taking measurements of what I've already got. And one of the things that's a little bit tricky, it's kind of like working a math equation with multiple variables, is that I have multiple variables. I've got these two guys, which I kind of probably want these front two pieces on either side of the belly to be symmetrical, you know, as far as the size goes. So what I want to do is probably go ahead and estimate the best that I can on how big those need to be versus the back. And what I can kind of do is, since the waist is the most narrow point of this design of the suit, because this dragon kind of has an hourglass sign, I want to basically take and figure out how much I need to add on the waist, and then just divide it in half. I can basically say I want to add, say I need to add 20 inches. I could say, okay, I want to add 10 in the front and 10 in the back to kind of make it even. Well, that means, okay, 5 here, and then 10 in the back. And of course, you do need to make it a little bit bigger because you're going to have some overlap seams going on. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the waist. And one of the things I need to do is kind of figure out, well, I can clearly see where the dragon's waist is, but that may not be where the human's waist is. So I need to take and figure out, on me, I basically have to kind of like stand up and take the tape measure and figure out, okay, my waist is here. Well, I need some kind of a reference point. I can kind of start from like straight in between the legs and come up, and my waist is roughly about 11 inches, and that's kind of what I remember from before. So I can take that same 11 inches, start in the same place on the dragon, and I can work my way up. I might do this a couple times just to make sure that I get it right. Alright, so here I have to look at the measurements that I've got. I need the waist to be, let's see, actually those are somebody else's measurements. Here we go. Okay. So actually what I have done is I had taken measurements already in one of these dragons that's cut open. So the measurements I have are not my actual measurements, they're how much I need to add, which is kind of cool. I was able to do that. I was able to put it on and say, okay, I don't need to worry about the math, I'll just figure out what do I need to add, like how many inches in order for it to fit properly. So on the waist, I need to add, see, 8 inches. 8 inches to the waist. So that being the case, I need to put 8 inches. So that means I might need to go a little further down with these front cuts because they are ending right here. So I might take that down a little further. I've already marked them, but that's okay. I can go down a little bit further. I would hate to try to do. Let's just see what would happen if I did 8 inches on the back. What does that look like? Now, something else to be aware of, if I'm going to go back the other direction, well, going from the straight under the legs to the front of a human is not the same as going, you got this big booty back here you got to worry about. So you got to go, kind of take the same approach. Might have to do this a couple times to verify, but well, that's 15 inches. That's a whole lot different than the 11 inches I got on the front. So I may do that again. $14 So we'll go with 14.5. We'll split the difference. So if I do that on the back side, my waist is going to be in a slightly different spot. I'm going to put a little mark of tape on each side of this. And what I can do is just kind of put this material back together. Get the other side. All right. So here, if I need to do 8 inches there, we're talking spreading it that far apart, which You know, honestly, that's probably okay. I think what I want to do is take a look at the under bust, because that's the next measurement that I have. And so I'm 8 inches on the waist, and then I want to be 12 inches on the under bust. So I could open this up 8, and then I could leave it 8 to the under bust. So it'd be basically kind of out and then just kind of straight. And then I could do the other 4 inches on the front at that point, which would be 2 inches and 2 inches. So I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You really kind of want to split the difference though, because the otherwise what you end up with is a hunchback, and you also end up with the arms really forward. So if you want the arms to kind of be, you know, on the sides instead of being like that, you want the arm kind of be on the side, then you want to add some material in the front as well. Ideally, I think in the past I've added up to about 4 inches kind of in the under bust. So that would be 8 inches in the front. So I think really that's going to be, if I only did 2, it's really not a lot in the front. I think what I might do is I might bring these down just a little bit so that I could do, instead of 8 inches in the back, maybe I could do an inch down here on the front, an inch on the other side, and then 6 inches on the back. I think that would probably work a lot better. It'll even things out. So I'm going to take these things and I'm going to see if I can tear it just a little bit further, so that maybe I could do about an inch. So it looks like I tore this further by, well actually I'm not even going to do that, because I think last time I measured this was uneven anyways. So I'm going to measure what this is again from the crotch. So I think we had about 10 inches. Now we're at about 8 inches. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. All right. Yeah, so this needs to come down quite a bit. I'm going to make a mark there. Measure that one more time just to make sure. Yeah, there we go. So this needs to come down. Yeah, it's quite a bit higher there. All right. So let's take and put some tape at these spots where the waist is. And make them the 1 inch that we are wanting to have. So we're looking for a 1 inch. And it's not going to be straight across, it's going to kind of curve because the back side is going around the butt. It's going to be fairly close, but you can kind of start curving that direction. And what I'm going to do to to make things a little easier, put a glass jar underneath here. Give me a nice curved piece to work across. I think I'm going to go for about 1.5 inches. Get some on the back side to kind of keep it from sticking to stuff. There's several ways I've done this. In a previous video, I used some tubing that I measured the waist and then the underbust and the chest and the shoulders, sometimes even the hips and the torso. And so I had all these polyethylene tubes that I joined together and made rings, and I kind of put them in there and then stuffed the whole thing with basically towels and sheets and laundry and stuff like that. And then I kind of basically figured out the gaps that I created. I could create patterns from there, go cut that material and then put it in place. So that's one way you can do it. This is another way, trying this to see, if this is an easier, more efficient way. Basically just taking the measurements of the material at these different locations. So theoretically, I should arrive at the same point. So the next thing I need to do is figure out the underbust. And what I can do is, again, kind of measure from, no, actually, before I go there, I'll get to that in a minute. I do need to finish the waist on the back side. And then I'll measure the, up to my underbust and then kind of translate that and do this exact same process again. So let me flip it over to the back. Well, it's a good thing I marked it in 2 different places. It looks like I lost my little piece of tape. It was too small. what I want to do is to add about 6 inches here. So hopefully I have enough tape. It's starting to run low. I need to go get another roll. What I could actually do is this. This might make it a whole lot easier. Take and kind of center this and mark. Okay, there's the beginning, there's my 6 inches. So now all I have to do, instead of trying to measure it and do this at the same time, I can just lay this down. Like this. So that's got my 6 inches there. Alright, so the next step is going to be the under bust. So that is going to be basically about 22 inches. Now, I'll probably need to do that twice. Do it on my front and on my back because of the butt. Of course, I could always I could measure from my waist up, and that would probably give me a pretty good indication. Of course, you do have to kind of also factor in belly size. You know, if somebody has a big belly, the material's got to be able to, you know, hold that. So it's always really nice to be able to see what the person looks like, get an idea of, you know, where there might be some extra material. All right, so there is the under bust. And then I might as well, I guess while I'm at it, I could probably go ahead and do chest, because that's going to be next, and that's basically just a little bit higher. It's 26 inches up, so I can basically, you know, take this, and so that's at 11, and here's at 22. Actually, this is, make a mark there because then I basically go 4 inches up. And you know, I mean, it's not like it's going to change too much that I need to be that exact with that little mark there. So at these positions, I need to add 12 inches to the underbust and 12 inches to the chest. So that's where I think I'm going to do 8 on the back and then 4 on the front, I do believe. Or I could do, I could. Depends what I want it to look like too. Like, do I want there to be more white material on the front? You know, that's going to kind of change the shape of this white panel that's going to be on the front, because the panels that I'm going to add to the front are going to be white as well. So I could do 6. I could go ahead and keep this as 6, although that is a little weird that it kind of splays out and then stays straight. But that's really not bad necessarily. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to just keep it 6. And then I'm going to go a little more on the front. So if I go let's do 3. I think we'll go with 3 there. I'm going to do my little trick of marking this tape at a 3-inch makes it a lot easier. So I might have to actually kind of hold this from the top since I got such a big gap. So we want it to be about 3 inches right here. Kind of our under bust. I'm going to hit this right there, and there we go. Now, I'd mentioned before, like, stuffing this thing. I'm going to still do that once I make these little pieces of tape. And these are just going to sort of be my limiting pieces. And then once I stuff it, I am going to, this thing's going to be stuffed so I can lay some clear plastic across these openings and trace out this shape, and that'll become my pattern. So because I need to, let's see, I'm adding 3 and 3, so that's 6, and I need to do 12, so then I'm going to do 6 on the back, and then, and I could even go more. I mean, we're talking about really the this is the minimum, so you can always make the suit inflate a little more if you want to make it a little bigger. I'm trying to kind of, we took these measurements with the suit on me and then kind of did a relaxed sort of measurement. It's not tight by any means. I mean, because you don't want this thing to be skin tight. So I could always go a little bigger on, some sections of this, especially if I wanted to. If I wanted to exaggerate the chest, I could always make it even bigger if I want to. So actually, I'll probably do the 3 and the 3, and I might go 8 on the back. So let's see. Since on the chest is the next one, since I want to go chest is the same. Okay, so up here at chest height, I need to have kind of the same thing going here. So these might need to go up a little bit higher if I want to be able to. Oops. Not what I wanted to do right there. If I want to do 3 inches, you could probably, at this height, this needs to go up a little bit more. So that I can get in a 3-inch. Too much trouble? Yeah, kind of go to the top of the arm, basically. Taking measurements with somebody in the suit is so much better because you're trying to put a human into a different shaped suit that's not really human shaped. It's humanoid, it's close, but it's not quite human. So it's really nice to be able to just put the person in there and then see what you need to do to open it up. It's a little bit harder when somebody orders one of these things and just sends you their measurements. That gets a little bit more difficult. Luckily with this one, I was able to, it's for me, so I was able to put it on and figure out what I needed to add to it to fit properly. All right, I think I'm gonna call it quits for right now, and I'm gonna come back to this later, probably tomorrow. I might go live again, do a little more work on it. So thanks for tuning in. I think this is the first time I've gone live on YouTube, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in.